The airport security line moved with the rhythm of tired travelers, shuffling forward in worn sneakers and business shoes. Sarah Chun stood among them, her backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes distant with exhaustion from 18 hours of humanitarian work in a disaster zone. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and dirt still clung to her fingernails despite 3 attempts to scrub them clean. She looked like anyone else trying to get home, except for the small anchor tatter barely visible on her inner wrist. Faded and simple, a relic from another lifetime. But here's where everything changed. The security officer's eyes narrowed as Sarah's bag passed through the scanner. Within seconds, 3 more guards surrounded her, their hands moving to their weapons. Sarah's heart hammered as they pulled her aside, voices sharp and accusatory. Someone had reported suspicious activity. Someone had seen her photographing infrastructure near the relief camp. In a nation still raw from recent conflicts, suspicion bloomed faster than understanding. Before she could explain, before she could reach for her credentials, cold metal circled her wrists. The handcuffs clicked shut with a sound that seemed to echo through the terminal, and Sarah felt the eyes of hundreds of travelers burning into her back. The holding room smelled of stale coffee and fear. Sarah sat on a metal chair, wrists still bound, trying to explain to officers who wouldn't listen. She was a civil engineer, so told Thame. She'd been documenting infrastructure damage to help plan reconstruction efforts. But her words hit a wall of skepticism. They'd found maps on her phone, technical drawings, photographs of bridges and power stations. In TRI's, she looked like a spy, not a savior. The lead officer, a stern woman with medals lining her uniform, leaned forward and asked coldly, "Who do you work for?" Sarah's voice cracked as she answered, "The International Relief Coalition," but even she could hear how hollow it sounded in that concrete room. Hours passed like days. Sarah's phone had been confiscated, her laptop sealed in an evidence bag, her lifeline to the outside world severed. She thought about her team, probably wondering where she was. She thought about the families she'd met in the camps, children who'd shown her drawings of the homes they remembered, elders who'd entrusted her with stories of their villages. She'd promised them she would help rebuild. And now she sat here, accused of the very destruction she was trying to heal. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them back. She'd been in harder places than this. She'd survived things these officers couldn't imagine, but surviving and being believed were different battles entirely. The door opened with a bang that made everyone jump. A man entered with the kind of presence that rearranged the gravity in a room. His uniform was different, naval insignia gleaming against dark fabric. Stars on his shoulders that commanded immediate recognition. Admiral James Reeves moved like purpose itself, his weathered face carved from years of decisions that weighed lives in the balance. The security officers straightened immediately, stammering explanations. But the Admiral's attention had already locked onto Sarah. His eyes, steel gray and penetrating, swept over her disheveled appearance, her bound wrists, her exhausted defiance, and then stopped. His gaze fixed on her inner wrist, on that small faded anchor tattoo. The Admiral's expression changed in a heartbeat. The hard lines around his mouth softened. Something flickered in those gray eyes. Recognition mixed with what looked like pain, like remembering something beautiful and terrible at once. He stepped forward slowly, deliberately, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Release her," he commanded. The security chief started to protest, gesturing to the evidence, the suspicious circumstances, the potential threat. But Admiral Reeves raised one hand and silence fell like a curtain. "Release her now," he repeated, quieter this time but somehow more forceful. "That tattoo is not for pretenders." The handcuffs fell away, and Sarah rubbed her wrists, confusion written across her face. The Admiral gestured for the others to leave, and reluctantly, they obeyed, filing out with backward glances and whispered questions. When the door closed, leaving them alone, Admiral Reeves pulled out a chair and sat down across from Sarah, suddenly looking older, wearier, more human. "I know what that anchor means," he sighed softly. "I know because my daughter had the same one." Sarah's breath caught. Her hand moved instinctively to cover the tattoo. Protective, possessive. The Admiral continued, his voice thick with emotion, barely contained. "Lieutenant, Commander Emma Reeves. She was a naval engineer. Brilliant. Fearless. Convinced she could rebuild the world with nothing but determination and mathematics. He smiled sadly. She and her team got those tattoos together. The 6 of them. Before their first deployment. They called themselves the Anchors, said they'd be the thing that held communities steady when everything else was falling apart. The past tense hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's eyes filled with tears now, not from fear, but from recognition, from the shared language of loss.
Emma was my team leader,
she whispered. She saved my life during the Mariposa earthquake. The building we were in collapsed. She held the beam until I could crawl out, even though she knew. Sarah couldn't finish. The Admiral nodded, understanding written in every line of his face, even though she knew it would fall on her. That was Emma. Always holding steady for others. They sat in silence, 2 people bound by the memory of someone who'd burned too bright and too briefly. Finally, the Admiral spoke again. I spent 2 years angry at the world that took her, angry at the work that killed her, angry at everyone who kept doing what got her killed. His voice cracked. But sitting here, seeing you, understanding what you were doing out there, I finally get it. Emma didn't die for nothing. She died holding something steady, and you're still doing it. Still being an anchor for people who are drowning. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I promised her I would, she said. The night before that earthquake, she told me that some people are meant to build, not destroy, that the world had enough destroyers. She made me promise that no matter what happened, I'd keep building. The Admiral reached across the table and gently touched the tattoo on Sarah's wrist, his finger tracing the simple anchor shape. She gave you more than a tattoo, he said. She gave you a calling. Within the hour, Sarah's belongings were returned with stammered apologies. The Admiral personally escorted her through the airport, his presence parting crowds like a ship through water. At her gate, he pressed a card into her hand with his personal contact information. For next time someone questions your purpose, he said. Then he added, more quietly, and because Emma would want us to know each other. You're keeping her alive out there. Sarah boarded her plane with tears still wet on her cheeks, but something had shifted. The weight she'd carried, the constant doubt about whether she was doing enough, had lightened. Sometimes fate doesn't give us what we want. Sometimes it takes away the people who teach us how to live.